If you've ever been driving through a city following your GPS, and it tells you to turn left on Main Street and then right on Oak Road, you've probably never stopped to think, wait, what's the actual difference between a road and a street? Are they just different names for the same thing? Or is there some secret urban planning rule that decides whether something is called a road, a street, an avenue, or a boulevard? Well, today, we're going to find out. And by the end, you might never look at street signs the same way again. So what's the difference between a road and a street? Right here, on History of Simple Things. Most of us use the words road and street interchangeably. You might say, I live down the road, or I'm walking down the street, without thinking about it. And honestly, in everyday conversation, people understand you either way. But in urban planning and geography, these terms aren't just poetic choices. They actually mean different things. The naming often comes from a mix of history, geography, and the purpose of the path itself. The tricky part? Over centuries, language has blurred these definitions, so sometimes you'll find places that break the rules. Let's start with the road. Historically, a road was designed to connect two distant points. Think of it as the path between towns, cities, or regions. Roads are primarily about movement from one place to another. They're meant for travel, not for hanging out. Before modern cities, roads were essential lifelines. They were the dirt, gravel, or stone pathways where merchants traveled, soldiers marched, and people moved goods. In ancient Rome, for example, the famous Roman roads weren't called main streets. They were literally engineered to connect far-off places in the empire. In today's terms, a road is usually a longer stretch of pavement designed to handle heavier, faster traffic. You'll find them outside city centers, sometimes cutting through rural landscapes, highways, or long suburban routes. A road doesn't care if you stop and buy a coffee halfway. It's just trying to get you from point A to point B. Now let's switch to street. A street is more about place than distance. Streets are usually found inside towns or cities and are designed not just for travel but for interaction. Think of your local downtown area. Sidewalks, crosswalks, streetlights, shop fronts, maybe a busker playing guitar on the corner. That's the vibe of a street. It's where people live, work, shop, and socialize. In other words, while a road connects places, a street connects people. The street is meant for slower traffic, more stops, and more pedestrian activity. It's part of a community's everyday rhythm. You're more likely to take a casual stroll down a street, but you wouldn't say you're strolling down a highway road, unless you enjoy dodging cars going 80 kilometers per hour. The English word road comes from the Old English word rad, meaning a ride or journey on horseback. From the very beginning, it had the sense of going somewhere far. Street, on the other hand, comes from the Latin word strata, meaning paved way. Roman streets inside cities were made of stone slabs, unlike rural dirt roads. Streets became the arteries inside a settlement, while roads were the veins connecting those settlements. This distinction carried over for centuries. Medieval towns would have main streets lined with markets, and outside the town walls you'd find the road leading to the next settlement. Let's take two examples. First, Route 66 in the US, famously called the Main Street of America, is technically a road. Its main function was to connect Chicago to Los Angeles. But when it passed through small towns, it sometimes became the town's main street, lined with diners and motels. Second, Wall Street in New York. It's not connecting two cities. It's a short stretch in the financial district, dense with buildings, pedestrians, and a very different pace of life. You see how context blurs the line? A road can have street-like sections, and a street can feel like part of a road network. One big reason people get confused is that naming isn't always consistent. Sometimes, a developer or city planner just chooses whatever sounds better. You might find a main road inside a city where it functions more like a street, or a high street that's actually the town's central commercial hub. And then you have cases where roads turn into streets as they enter a city and then back into roads when they leave. It's like they change personalities depending on the neighborhood. While we're at it, roads and streets are just two types of thoroughfares. There's also avenue, often a wide street, sometimes with trees or landscaping. Boulevard, usually wide, often divided with greenery in the middle. Lane, a small narrow road, often rural. Drive, a road that curves or winds. Way, a small street or path, often less formal. All these names can give hints about the road's function, but again, naming is not always by the book. You might wonder, does knowing the difference change anything? In everyday life, maybe not. But in urban planning, traffic design, or even real estate, it matters a lot. Roads and streets serve different purposes, and designing them wrong can lead to unsafe, unpleasant spaces. If you try to make a road function like a street, you might create traffic jams and hazards. If you make a street function like a road, you might lose the community feel and pedestrian safety. At the end of the day, whether you're driving down a winding rural road or strolling along a lively city street, both play vital roles in how we move, connect, and live. Roads keep our world linked together, allowing goods, ideas, and people to travel far and wide. Streets, meanwhile, give us places to gather, interact, and feel part of a community. Knowing the difference might not change how you get to work tomorrow, but it gives you a new way to see your surroundings. The next time you pass a sign that says road or street, you'll understand the story it's telling. One about purpose, history, and the way humans shape the spaces we live in. So, whether life takes you down a road or onto a street, remember? Both are part of the bigger journey, just serving different chapters of the story. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.